Hello listeners, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today we're just going to have a very simple audio based video, almost like a podcast where I like to talk about a couple things that I want to share with y'all. So for today I just want to give a couple of I would say advice for anyone that wants to get into music producing. So I have gathered here five different types of advice for up and coming music producers, people who want to get into actual producing. This will be more towards the people that actually want to learn how to use like a DAW rather than like picking up an instrument, because those two are very different forms of like learning about music. Theory is one thing, but producing is a different thing. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about the producing side this time. Okay, let me get started with just a very simple one that I feel like everyone has to kind of get down before they want to begin just anything in general. And my first piece of advice is to use what you have and save the spending for later in the hobby. This kind of includes anything really. Like whenever it comes to like drawing, people like to just go out and spend like, you know, the best markers, the best drawing tablets, stuff like that. But what I really advise, especially for producing, because stuff there can get pretty expensive, is to begin with what you have. There are a couple of free alternatives that you can use. If you have an Apple device, like an iPhone, an iMac, a MacBook, something like that, you already have access to a really good DAW. You have access to GarageBand, which is essentially the free version of Logic Pro, because it kind of just behaves like Logic Pro, except that it has a bunch of stripped down features. In GarageBand, it doesn't really have that many plugins, but it does have access to a couple of good VSTs. So I recommend anyone that wants to try getting into production, if you do have an Apple device, give GarageBand a really good try. If you don't, then there's still other options that you can use. If you have a Windows PC, FL Studio does have access to a free version of their software. And I believe Pro Tools also has a free version of their software. I recommend more leaning into FL Studio. Pro Tools I'm not really a big fan of, especially if you want to get into specifically making music. I think FL would be a lot better. Just a quick warning that FL does tend to have very different ways how the DAW works compared to all the other DAWs, but yeah, you know, if it's free you can give it a try. I recommend you at least give both of them a try. Alright, now we're getting into advice now that you do have your DAW and you are making some music, but you feel like stuff isn't really working. My second advice for you is to do a technique which I like to call layering. So whenever you have a certain melody within your DAW, I recommend that you carry that melody and put it on a different instrument, just so you can hear out other instruments playing that same melody. And what I really recommend, here's where the layering comes in. I recommend that you have both instruments play that exact same melody, so that instead of just having one VST, you have 2, 3, or even 4 VSTs playing the same melody. And you're essentially making your own synths just by adding stuff on top of it. This is actually how some synthesizers actually work for making their synths. There's two types of, at least main synthesizers, additive and subtractive, and additive does this technique as well, so you're technically making your own synths. I really recommend you give this a try. If you think that your synth just sounds a bit too flat, you're like, okay, I need to make it sound a bit more, add another one. And try to go for different styles. Maybe add a pad under a lead, or if you want some rhythm to it, go ahead and add a rhythmic one with a lead. Just make sure that they don't clash. If you have to, you can bring down an octave of one of them a bit down or up. You can also change the octave, since it won't exactly mess with your note placement. It's going to most likely be the same thing, but just with a different sound. Speaking of rhythmic, I do recommend, for my third piece of advice, is to give arpeggiation a try. So arpeggiation is pretty much essentially a sort of rhythm to a synth or a melody. So instead of having one long note play for the entire bar, you can go ahead and break it up into some sort of rhythm. So instead of having one note for the whole bar, you can have 4 notes and there's already a bit of rhythm. You can even chop it up into certain cuts. You can do thirds, You can even do the first 4 be halves, the second ones be quarters, whatever it is. But I do recommend that you do give arpeggiation or some sort of rhythmic within your melodies a try. So this next advice is for people who have bigger ideas of their music and are struggling to put it onto your DAW. There's times where whenever you enter your DAW, you kind of struggle to meet that sort of expectation that you have in your head. So my advice is to have that idea, but break it down to something that you can put on the DAW very easily. There's this technique called piano reduction, which is essentially taking that idea, that song that's in your head, and you're going to go ahead and put it in Logic Pro the best way that you can, but you are only going to use pianos for it. This is because you want to get the notes, chords, the melodies, stuff like that. You want that to be perfect. You want that to be exactly how you think of it. And once that's there, that's pretty much all of the hard part. Now you can go ahead and have fun changing the instruments, adding all the effects that you want so that you can get to that idea that you have in your head. I really recommend that this is how you should practice making music, especially if you're thinking of music all the time and all of a sudden you get an idea. Go into Logic, open up your basic piano, put that melody in there, and you should have pretty much your idea in Logic now. But yeah, I do recommend piano reduction. Is something that everyone should know about and everyone should give a try at least once. And I do recommend that everyone sticks to it, because I have, and I think it's been really good for having ideas and then putting them into Logic and then coming back and it turns into something good. Okay, my last piece of advice, which is one that I really recommend everyone should stick to, is to practice music production daily. At least 5 to 10 minutes of your day, every single day. Open up your DAW of choice, open up Logic, open up FL, Ableton, whatever, and just spend 10 minutes into it. But whatever it is, I want you to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes in your DAW daily. I really recommend that you make it a part of your routine. If it's something that you like to do, the first thing to do when you wake up, then that's fine. Maybe you like to do it before you go to bed. Doesn't matter. 5 to 10 minutes a day, and I recommend that you at least give something that's worth, a little bit of thinking. You don't have to do an entire project every day. Maybe sometimes you just want to play some notes on the piano, record it, and see if it sounds good. Maybe you want to try just, special effects, or maybe you're just browsing through the catalog of synths that you have and see what sounds good for later. Doesn't matter. 5 to 10 minutes a day. I really recommend that you do have that habit to open up Logic, open up FL, whatever your DAW is, and give it a try. And that's pretty much it for my advice for new and beginning music producers. I recommend that, give all of these a try. All right, thanks for listening.